Adventure and new friends are what awaits you in Starfleet, the world's largest Star Trek fan club. Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association, is celebrating its 45th anniversary, and with over 4,000 members in 75 countries, it offers camaraderie, educational and philanthropy opportunities, and a unique membership experience modeled on the Starfleet organization from the TV shows and movies. To start your adventure today, visit www.sfi.org.
Greetings, my fellow shipmates. Welcome back to Future Imperfect, only on thisweekingeek.net. I am your commanding officer this evening, Mike the Birdman Dodd, but I'm joined by my faithful XO, the officer who keeps me from messing with the transporter system,
Steve Megatron Phillips.
And yes, this is our show for the month of April. And, I do want to send a very special shout out to my shipmates over at sfi.org, the sponsors of this show. Dave, Debbie, and the crew of the USS Hadfield, they were representing Starfleet tonight at an event down in Mississauga to celebrate the Best of Both Worlds television event, where they basically show 2 episodes in high-definition Blu-ray on the big screen. Now, unfortunately, I had to miss this tonight because I don't know what I ate out of the replicator, but it just did not agree with me, and I spent most of the day in bed playing Skyrim.
Damn tribbles.
Yeah, oh my god, I thought I was going to die. But I'm better now. So big shout out to them. I love it when we get a chance to interact with the community. And one of our guys on the mailing list for Starfleet we have these colleges where you can, there's a section of Starfleet where if you want to be the professor of Harry Potter, but they also have other subjects like hardcore physics, math, etc., etc. So it's like going to Starfleet Academy. I actually completed about half of the Borg subsection for xenobiology before I just got too busy. But I might be turning in some stuff on physics. I've been reading a lot of stuff up on solar winds. In fact, there's a really cool YouTube channel I think you guys should check out. It's called Suspicious Observers, and the guy talks about space weather and how it interacts with the Earth's magnetic field, but also how it ties to potentially earthquakes as well. So it kind of strays into that pseudoscience, but I think he makes a lot of really valid points. So now that I've yammered on for near 2 minutes, Steve, what have you been doing since the last time we were in dry dock?
Well, in school, I got to release our class project. We had 5 of us doing this video that I scripted, which is the meme killer. We go around and kill internet memes in the video. Well, one guy does.
Did you kill Grumpy Cat?
No.
Good.
We only had some memes in there. You know, like the dancing baby and the Harlem Shake, planking, owling. Something that came out right around the time we were making it was the Hadoken and the Vadering.
See, I'm okay with the Hadoken, whatever, Street Fighter. But that Harlem Shake, my God, it is my goal, Steve, my personal mission to never see that video in my life.
I'll play it for you.
I will kill you. That's my wife in the background. It's my. I didn't see Gundam Style or whatever the fuck it is till like 8 months later.
Well, if you ever see the Harlem Shake, you have to watch our video because it's not the traditional Harlem Shake. It's a masked killer hunting down people.
Good. We should link that in the episode post.
I will.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I mean, I was doing that, and then working on a side feature, so to speak, for GeekCastRadio.com. I mean, I'm prepping a lot of Year 5 content as far as the site's concerned, but there's one specific feature which we're launching. It'll be launched by the time this episode comes out. The forums for GCRN, which will be fully interactive, and it gives people another place to piss and moan about the Wars tournaments that you and I are both involved with.
Yes, because after this episode, we're going to go talk about some of that stuff, which kind of brings me about what we're going to be talking about in today's episode, we're going to be talking about time travel in Star Trek, talking about some of the science behind it, but also how does it fit into the Trek universe? Has it been treated well, not so well, or is it merely lazy writing? Depending on which school of thought you come from, well, we'll have to wait and see where the discussion takes us. We also have the Replicator back online for a change. Thank you, Paramount, for supplying me with something. We're going to be talking about the Best of Both Worlds Blu-ray that just came out, and then when we come back in probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about Star Trek in the Darkness, and I'll have a full review of the Season 3 Blu-ray as well. So without any further ado, let's go check in with the LCARS computer network about, well, I guess we'll do the Replicator first, I think, yes, and then we'll go to LCARS, so that makes sense. We'll be back right after this.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
Welcome to From the Replicator. I'm Mike the Birdman Dodd, and we're taking a look at a selection coming to us from Paramount. This is Star Trek: The Next Generation, the Best of Both Worlds Blu-ray. This is one of the most celebrated episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, but for maybe the three of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I'll set this story up. The Best of Both Worlds takes place at the end of the third season, leading into the fourth, and while the Enterprise has been called out to a Federation colony that sent a distress call, suddenly it's gone quiet, and the attack shows similar signs to what happened to a colony that was attacked by the Borg back in the episode Q Who. And well, the Enterprise runs afoul of the nefarious cyborgs, and the unthinkable happens. Captain Picard is captured by the Borg and assimilated into Locutus of Borg, who's chosen to speak for humanity to basically make the transition to assimilation easier, or so they think. There's a lot of things going on this episode. We actually meet Admiral Hansen. We also meet Commander Shelby, played by Elizabeth Dennehy, as well an up-and-coming hotshot who wants Commander Riker's job because he's been offered a command for a third time and he keeps saying no. So is Riker going to leave the Enterprise? Well, we'll just have to check this out and see. But for us hardcore Trek fans, we know how this turns out. This is an amazing episode of television. In fact, they actually have this specific Blu-ray edited into the hour and change movie version of it, rather than just cutting the two episodes right down the middle with that fantastic cliffhanger we saw at the end of Season 3. And I think that's a big reason to pick this up, because it's awesome to go from Mr. Worf, fire, and then it just goes into the next scene where they fire the main deflector dish. So let's talk about the presentation. This is probably one of the best looking episodes I've seen across the 3 seasons of the show being upgraded to Blu-ray and 1080p. There's a lot of little things you didn't notice, specifically looking at some of the Borg costumes. It looks like they're wearing this sort of brown chainmail underneath the Borg apparatuses. You also notice little details, like I never noticed the little pimple or mole on Commander Shelby's face so much. Just seeing the piercing color of Captain Picard's eyes and Riker's, noticing little things on the uniforms, how crisp they look. It's the little details you notice. And there's even something I noticed, and I don't know whether I'm 100% seeing this right. There's one point where they're looking over Commander Shelby's shoulder, and it's one of the access panels going towards one of the turbo lifts, and it looks like there's a musical note on one of the display screens, because I know there's tons of little hidden references in there, and you can actually make out a few of them if you zoom in really close. But that's just awesome. Once again, fantastic sound mixing to hear. The score that was done for this episode in 7.1, that's a treasure. Lastly, I want to talk about the special feature. This is actually worth picking up because you do get a special feature which is not included upon the other Season 3 release, which we'll review next time on Future Imperfect, and it's called Regeneration Engaging the Borg. It's about a 20 to 25 minute featurette. Talks about the episode, conception, designing it, the writing. Seth MacFarlane from Family Guy talks about it. Patrick Stewart shares a couple stories about it. And one of his favorite stories is how a guy on a subway train told him he was keeping it real for doing this. And it's neat because it's not included upon the Season 3 features. So if you're a huge feature fan like me, then this is probably worth picking up. Plus you get the episodic promos, that's a given. You also get an interesting commentary with the director Cliff Bowl, the Okudas, and Elizabeth Dennehy talking about things they remember from the episode, the shooting from it, etc. And you get the gag reel with Riker and Crusher making out. Pretty weird. But anyway, this is a seriously fantastic buy from Paramount. Like I said, this is one of the best episodes of the series, and this is something you could probably show to anybody. It might make them a fan in the end. So anyway, guys, that is Star Trek The Next Generation, the Best of Both Worlds Blu-ray. Definitely worth picking up. Now back to Future Imperfect.
And we're back with Future Imperfect. Thank you for that awesome review of The Best of Both Worlds.
I gotta say, when you watch this on the right kind of TV, I'm really impressed just how well some of these transfers have actually been done. It was really cool to learn about the process through Denise and Michael Okuda. However, as I mentioned in my review, looking at the Borg, when you see them really close up, it looks like they're all wearing varsity sweaters. It's really weird. If you look under their armor, there's this brown shirt, and it's mesh, and it looks like something out of a 1980s college movie. I don't know. It took me completely out of it, thinking, I liked it better when I couldn't see it. But still, it's still cool. Seeing Captain Picard in high def looks really neat. Seeing all the little things that they did, and also just all the little details that went into making the different Borg headpieces. So seriously worth it. And like I said in the review, you get a special feature that's not on the Season 3 Blu-ray, but I'll tell you what special features you do get in the Season 3 Blu-ray after we see Star Trek In the Darkness. But we have one more thing to take a look at today. We have to check out the LCARS computer network as we talk about time travel in Star Trek.
This computer terminal provides full access to the LCARS computer net. It can be operated both by voice and keypad commands.
Initiating update.
Hello and welcome to another edition of LCARS. I'm your host Steve Megatron Phillips, and in this edition of LCARS, well, we're covering something that's closely tied to the featured topic of the episode, which is time travel. This edition, we're covering temporal mechanics and, well, all of the statistics on the Star Trek time travel episodes and the various kinds there is. Temporal mechanics is the study of the workings of time and its effects on the space-time continuum, and is particularly relevant when dealing with time travel. As late as 2154, time travel was deemed impossible by the Vulcan Science Directorate. The United Federation of Planets had some form of time travel ability since at least 2268. It is possible that at least some of their current and future regulations regarding time travel can trace their origins back to this date. However, compatibility at this point was most likely inaccurate, making any attempt at time travel experimental and dangerous. It is known that the Federation, the Borg Collective, the Bajorans, and the Klingon Empire were known to have some form of time travel capabilities. A historical research in 2268 suggests the Federation was capable of controlled time travel and used this ability at the very least for research purposes, which it could be bad in the wrong hands. As of 2378, at least 40 different instances of some form of time travel had been noted in Federation records. Again, that they know of. Technologically speaking, the Federation's capabilities concerning time travel have, for the most part, remained unclear. In the 25th century, time travel is mostly possible but still risky. As of the 26th century, historians and anthropologists use time travel pods to travel through time to observe historical events. This is where it gets fun. The temporal violations. A temporal violation was a report filed by the Department of Temporal Investigations when it was determined that an individual under Federation jurisdiction had not complied with regulations designed to ensure minimal contamination of the timeline in the event of time travel.
In 2373, Department member Dulmar told Captain Sisko that James T. Kirk had the biggest file on record, with 17 temporal violations. I love that episode of DS9, The Trials and Tribulations. It is awesome. Not only that, but it goes back to the original series with DS9. You just can't get any better than that. So, cutting into it, time travel episodes, the overall count is the original series has 5, the animated series has 1, the films have 4, TNG has 13, DS9 has 11, Voyager has 12, and Enterprise has 10. Now, alternate timeline episodes. The original series has 1, TAS has 1, TNG has 1, DS9 has 2, Voyager has 3, and Enterprise has 1. Alternate timeline episodes weren't as frequent than the regular time travel episodes themselves. And as you can see, most of them take place because of 24th century shows or because they just ran out of things to do. Now, parallel universe episodes were a little bit more than alternate timeline. The original series had 3 of them. The animated series had 1, which that seems to be a token with the animated series. The Next Generation had 2, DS9 had 5, Voyager had 1, and Enterprise had 2. There are many types of temporal incursions or violations, but 3 that kind of stand out. Enterprise had the temporal Cold War. The Next Generation had the Borg. Voyager had the Anorex. Voyager, well, the ship itself constantly was doing it. And the J.J. Abrams verse had Nero. The 3 top things of temporal mechanics that include and are used quite frequently in the show: anti-time, tachyon pulses, and slingshot effect. So that rounds up this history lesson of Elcars. Tune in next time when we'll have some awesome information. And for now, back to the show.
Please confirm deactivation request. Deactivation complete.
Hey guys, welcome back to Future Imperative, brought to you by SFI.org Starfleet, the world's largest Star Trek online fan club, and of course, only on thisweekingeek.net. Don't you feel awesome? So, I don't know where that enthusiasm came from. I'm just going to presume it's because I'm talking about science! I love science, even pseudosciences, especially theoretical stuff. So, like Steve said in the Elcars thing, we're talking about time travel, the ability to go forward, backwards, or depending on your school of thought, you could in theory go sideways with time travel, and we can talk about parallel worlds and all that sort of thing. So, I find that time travel is one of these things that is really hot in the media right now, with the explosion of popularity with Doctor Who, and the fact that time travel was involved in the first Star Trek reboot movie. Well, it's kind of relevant to what is going on, and I guess it could kind of lead into what happens in the next one, because I've been privy to some information about the new Star Trek movie, and, well, I probably shouldn't spoil it, lest people set phasers to kill. So, I guess let's start at the beginning. Steve, do you believe in time travel?
It's kind of a tough one, because while there's no proof besides jumping over one, edge of a border of an area where, the time zone changes, because technically that's time travel, then I do think that it is possible. Do I think that it'll happen in our lifetime? Probably not.
Yeah, I just don't think we're at that point technologically. I mean, considering we haven't really escaped our own solar system, at least with manned flights, I'm highly skeptical of it. However, though, I do think it's possible. I just don't think we're ever going to use it because, well, I think it's Stephen Hawking that said, if time travel were possible, where's all the vacationers from the future? So think about that for a second. I mean, and there's also different theories of time travel. I mean, for example, look at the Terminator series of movies, for example, right? In the first 3, in the first 2, because the last 2 don't count because they sucked.
Yep.
It's a fragile future. basically one event can changes the entire future. Like, obviously, you go back and kill John Connor, the machines win. But for that to happen, the machines have to live. So John Connor can be born to be brought back to the present so he can do it, thus creating the machines by them killing the first Terminator. But it's a self-fulfilling principle. It's a loop, right? But in essence, there is still a future possible where the machines could have won. Another theory is, a friend of mine mentioned this in one of his videos. I'm sure there's a more scientific term for it, called hypertime. And that's where every possibility... Whoops, I hit my cat. Every possibility happens, but only exists for a fraction of seconds based upon the likelihood of it actually happening. For example, I'm talking to you right now, and my microphone turns into a pineapple. That could happen, in theory. But not truly time travel, it's more like a parallel world. That brings me to my next theory of time travel. Parallel worlds. A really good example of this, kind of obscure at least. I don't know how familiar you are with Dragon Ball Z, for example.
I love Dragon Ball Z.
All right then, Trunks. Trunks gets sent back to the past to prevent the androids winning in Goku's future, but not his own. That's already happened. He can't change the past. So that's when you go back. It's kind of like Sliders. It's like parallel worlds once again. But it is still, in theory, time travel. Though they do time travel in later seasons of that show, and it sucked after season 2. Moving on. I think of another theory of time travel that I'm missing here. Oh, if you change a major event, it will still happen anyway, just slightly different. I know we see this in the original series a couple of times. I think there was an episode where they kidnapped some fighter pilot, but his son's destined to go to Saturn at some point, so he has to be back. He can't be removed from the events, so...
Well, that also happened in Enterprise at one point. They took Captain Archer to the future, and it threw off all of time because he never formed the United Federation of Planets. And then that's one instance where if you don't leave people where they're supposed to go, then it kind of throws things off. But at the same time, look at the first rebooted Abrams movie, and you have Nero throwing off everything, and history kind of course corrects.
Yeah, and we get the alternate universe, which is weird because technically what I consider to be the prime timeline still exists in Trek, whereas the Abrams universe, sort of the side B of all this, also exists concurrently but in the past. I'd be very curious to see where Abrams universe ends up in terms when it advances to the next generation era. Basically, what would the technology look like? How would history have changed? Because, well, Vulcan's a pretty big deal. I mean, depending on how you look at the canonicity of the animated series and some of the novels, it does play a pretty big role in basically the politics of the Federation. The fact that this race is almost extinct. But then again, it's the future. One word, cloning, not a problem. But still, you kind of get my point where I'm kind of going with this. But then you look at time travel, for example, with the Borg. And if you exist outside of time, you're protected by events that have happened in it. For example, with First Contact, they get caught in the Borg's temporal wake, whatever, and Earth has been assimilated. So something like 8 billion Borg sitting in our solar system, but the Enterprise is fine. And yet the Borg somehow succeeded, which means there are multiple timelines technically happening, but there is something interesting that I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it because I'm not entirely sure I understand it. But you're going to want to look this up on Wikipedia and Google, however reliable those are. It's the Nikolov self-consistency principle. Basically, it's impossible to create time paradoxes, is basically what it says, because events have to play out the way they do, which is why I kind of wonder myself, do I believe in time travel? Because if that's true, is it like the kind of butterfly effect? You change one thing, you change everything. Or the old, I guess it's an adage, the whole grandfather paradox. If you go back in time and kill your own grandfather, do you still exist? And I know there's been a few TV shows and other forms of media that have actually talked about this, saying yes, but you turn into a parallel world. Which is it's enough to make your head ache when you look at it. But I think Star Trek is one of the few franchises that I think has actually treated time travel either extremely well or really badly. For example, The City on the Edge of Forever, one of the most celebrated television episodes ever. Really awesome time travel episode. But then we get back to the other one where I mentioned about the guy, he has to survive, has to be put back in time, and yet somehow his memory's erased of all the events. And yet we just talked about First Contact in the same breath, where they go back to save Earth from the Borg, and they remember everything. They don't ever remember... Technically, none of the Enterprise crew would have ever existed. So, your turn, Steve.
Yeah,
I put a lot more thought into this than you probably thought, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, even with all the various time travel going on throughout the series and all the, whether we believe it or not, Trek did have more involved with that than what I previously thought before doing research for this. Like, for instance, I knew that the Borg and the Federation had access to it. I did not know that the Bajorans and the Klingon Empire had the capability.
Explain that. I'm not familiar with this.
They mentioned it in DS9, and as far as I believe the episode was Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night. Mm-hmm. I believe they mentioned something about the Bajorans and the Klingon Empire being known to have some form of time travel capability. There's also evidence to suggest that the Federation was capable of controlled time travel in the year 2268 to use the ability, but for research purposes only.
Yeah, I can't see that being so regulated that someone couldn't slip through the cracks. But then again, we kind of see that in Voyager, where the one guy comes back from the 29th century and gives technology to some douchebag in LA. And that's how the Doctor gets his mobile emitter or some shit like that.
Yeah, and even in TNG, they had 25th century and 26th century people coming back in time, either through various other methods or time travel pods.
Yeah, and, if Captain Kirk, for example, in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, he just had the slingshot around the sun, so what's to prevent any asshole in a shuttlecraft from doing this?
Because it would burn up. It has to be capable of... A shuttlecraft would not have the force necessary to cause it.
Okay, so anything of, say, a frigate size or dreadnought size, so...
But it would have to be able to achieve high warp speed.
Okay, but let's say the upper limit of warp is 9.9. Yes, I know they've gone to 10, but...
that doesn't count. Yeah. That turns them into lizards.
And, we can actually talk about that, too, because that actually kind of plays into time travel as well. They never address this, and I'm pretty sure there's some Trek nerd writing us right now, feedback at thisweekingeek.net, by the way, telling us, no, you're wrong! And I don't understand that, because it seemed to me in the 23rd century, when Kirk and all them had access to this, they could have solved a whole lick of problems, because I promise you, that's not the only Klingon bird of prey they've captured. The Constitution class could keep up with those things, I'm pretty sure. So,
and the original Enterprise went back in time.
Yeah, so why are there not more paradoxes going on? Basically, Star Trek's really inconsistent with its time travel things. Like, if you, for example, let's go to Enterprise again. The temporal Cold War that happened, which is really stupid, by the way.
That's because all of a result of taking the captain out of his original timeline, I believe.
Yeah, and when you destroy the time travel device, everything resets. You see this also again in Voyager with, I think it's called The Year of Hell, where they're fighting Red from that 70s show. I can't remember the name of the episode, but he's like, I will get my people back. And they have a ship that exists outside of time where basically they're like, we have 99.8% restoration. He's trying to bring back his dead wife. But once again, I could tie in Doctor Who, where they talk about this. The Doctor says there are certain fixed points in time. He's a Time Lord, so he knows this. He just has the ability to perceive time as we do a painting, for example. And certain events have to happen. Otherwise, well, bad shit goes down. Paradox could, in theory, tear apart reality. And I like to think of Star Trek as a show that pretty much treats science a little more seriously than, say, Doctor Who, for example. And I know that's blasphemy, guys. Trust me, I'm a Whovian. I have a TARDIS on top of my monitor right now.
Nice.
So I get both schools of thought, but I don't know. I want consistency among everything. But then again, that being said, some of the time travel episodes have also been some of the strongest across Star Trek. Once again, City of Forever, Yesterday's Enterprise. And I really think I think it's called The Year of Hell for Voyager. Why do I think I'm getting that name wrong? Are really good. I really enjoy them. And some of the best Trek movies involve time travel. Voyage Home, First Contact.
Generations.
And Generation.
It was not great, but it wasn't bad either.
Yeah, and that actually kind of brings up the another thing when you tie in Generations. We can also talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation, because you look at the last episode, All Good Things, where that temporal anomaly he detects in the 26th century, or the late 25th, or what?
It's the late 24th century. It's early 25th. It's because of anti-time and tachyon pulse.
Yeah, and the further it goes back in time, the larger it gets, because all time exists at once. It's like a closed loop sort of thing. And it's actually funny. I was actually just watching something, but just before. In fact, I really recommend you guys check this out. There's a documentary on YouTube. It might actually be on Netflix, too, about time travel. It's by National Geographic. And this one guy talks about time travel using cosmic strings, though I'm pretty sure this is different from string theory. Allow me to explain. A black hole or gravity well compresses time and space. Technically, we live in a 4-dimensional world. Time, space, basically, everything. And what happens is when you compress things, you could technically take 2 pieces of string, put them in a black hole or something like that, and the strength of that gravity warps around it. Now, if you could create that on your own, it would take the energy of almost half the galaxy to do it, just because of the mass, and once mass reaches a certain speed, science stuff, it starts to collapse in on itself, which in theory you could go back in time in that one place. However, though, when you do that, you are creating a black hole. So that's another thing too with all these inventions in the future of Star Trek, because like you see, I think in Voyager they have like temporal time cops. They snap their fingers and they're back in time, or they have time ships and all this stuff. So that's another thing too, because like I said, I love Trek, don't get me wrong, but just looking at the phenomenal amounts of energy that would have to be used to travel back in time. But then again, like I said, I know I'm going to get some guy going, Mike, it's just a TV show. But Star Trek is one of those shows that really got me interested in space and science and everything. And obviously I enjoy time travel fiction, like Back to the Future, Doctor Who, The Terminator, for example. I don't know, what do you think works with time travel in Star Trek specifically, Steve?
Specifically, I think that it allows the ability to explore other alternatives than what they consistently show week to week to week. It lets you have the option of having them explore something that is completely out of their element. Either, sometimes they're aware of what's going on. Other times, one person is aware of the change, or 2 people are aware of the change, and then everybody else is kind of oblivious to what's going on. Or, one person realizes that, hey, something's not right, but they can't put their finger on why. I mean, it allows other areas to be visited without necessarily having to totally detract from the ongoing storyline, but they allow for this one shot to happen with something new.
Now, what episode do you think above all else treats time travel the best? Maybe across the entirety of the series. I'll go first to kind of give you an idea where I'm going with this. I really like Yesterday's Enterprise. And I'm pretty sure that was nominated for several awards, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure you're right. And actually, I was going to mention that very same episode.
Because, and the reason I think it is, why it's treated so well, it brought a character who was more or less written off stupidly. I like Tasha Yar. I'll come right out and say that. Worf is better, but Tasha deserved more of a shot than what she got in that stupid Romulan bullshit. But the fact that she went back in time with the Enterprise C to make a difference, and that's how history had to happen, I really like that. And plus, it's just really weird seeing, I think that's Michael McDonald or Chris McDonald, the bad guy from Happy Gilmore, is also in that. And there's something about that I really like, because it really makes a time travel. It's not even about the science of it, it's about the consequences of it. And I like it when Tash is like, Captain, I'm supposed to be dead. This should never have happened. Stuff like that. And there's another episode I want to bring up as well. Once again, TNG, and it deals with parallel worlds. It was a very late season episode, late season 7 episode. Worf's coming back from a Batleth tournament. Science bullshit happens, and he's thrown into a different timeline, a different parallel world. And you see all the different possibilities that would have happened. And
isn't that the episode, Future Imperfect?
It might very well be, actually. I'm not sure of the actual name of it. But the thing that really got me on that episode is how one little thing can change. There's one episode, or like they basically see different versions of the world. A one where they're used to seeing Captain Picard dead and like he's alive, where he died during the Borg attack. There's another one where the Borg have conquered the Federation and there's like nobody left. And you see Riker looking really scraggly, and that Enterprise blows up. I really like that episode. And you just see Worf starts to see that he can have something with Counselor Troy, because the Troy from an alternate world's like, you and I are married in this timeline. Maybe you should take a look at it in yours. When he gets back to the Alpha timeline, he's like, hey, Counselor Troy, what are you doing tonight? And I just really like how that even carries through to other series, and like how it just never works out with Counselor Troy in the Prime timeline. He gets together with Dax, and then later Ezri, but not so much. That doesn't end well. But yeah, I really like the fact that time travel was used merely as the background for it, but it was not the primary setting for it. With I guess the exception of Yesterday's Enterprise, they needed to do it, but it was a matter of moral choice. Do I preserve where I am, or do I go back and make a difference?
Well, and then there's also a replicated fake future that you don't realize has happened. For instance, bringing up the episode Future Imperfect, I looked it up again. It is the episode where Commander Riker is celebrating a birthday, and they have to go on an away team. And it fills with some kind of a gas. It's him, Geordi, and Worf, and he passes out. He awakens to find that 16 years have passed, and he is now captain of the Enterprise, and Data is his first officer, and Picard is an admiral, and he's got a son named Jean-Luc.
Wow.
And it turns out that everything is pretty much a simulation in a holodeck.
Oh, the holodeck. You know, we're actually going to have to talk about that in a future episode, because I think that's the laziest plot device.
But, I know, it's the hidden MacGuffin in the room.
But then again, there's also some really good episodes that happen in the holodeck, with the exception of the season or the series finale of Enterprise, because that was complete bullshit.
Well, mostly it happens good, and yeah, I know that was horse shit. I was like, what?
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, this is a cop out.
And they said it during such a weird episode.
I would say Voyager is probably the primary.
Yeah, they relied entirely too much on time travel, or they'd have people displaced out of time. There's another episode I remember.
They used that and the holodeck up the wazoo.
Yeah. And, you know, it's weird. The more I think about it, and the more I realize there are problems with Voyager, the more I love it. I don't know, figure that one out. Because they would use a lot of historical Earth stuff there. And I remember one episode, they went to this planet, and Amelia Earhart, exactly. I'm like, what the fuck? Really? It just so happens. And once again, it's just a TV show. Yeah, but there's good TV and bad TV. I know Voyager a lot of people don't like. But I think they had the most fun with time travel. In some ways, like I said, we had the war with the Kremen, getting the Doctor's mobile emitter. They benefited most from the future because Admiral Janeway in the series finale of that, bringing back the ablative armor tech, the Borg middle finger, basically, and the fact that the collective has been in shambles since then. So, I don't know. Voyager, they made the most difference, I think, outside of maybe yesterday's Enterprise with establishing the peace treaty with the kind of Klingons to solidify the Alpha Quadrant. But we kicked the Borg's ass in basically 2 shots. When you see Voyager coming out of that trans-warp tunnel and they're firing those transphasic torpedoes, the Borg cube is fucked.
Oh yeah, from the get-go.
And that's another thing, too. The Borg actively know time travel. They're like, yeah, here's our temporal transwarp thingamajig. And they never use it. Do you not find
that was the biggest
suspect?
waste of time travel device that I'd ever seen in Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, the Borg...
They have this huge web and they can't use it.
Yeah, like, they have this armada of ships and resources. Basically, they should have conquered the Alpha Quadrant 7 times over by now, at least. They have access to the ability to wipe us out beforehand, or at least take us when we're at the height of our population and assimilate us, and never do. And that's likely just a plot oversight, or, it's not happy when the good guys lose. But it makes you wonder, in the greater context of the fiction of Star Trek, why? It kind of makes me wonder, maybe... I can see it from this angle, so follow me through. Maybe time travel in Star Trek, the fact that they do have the temporal cops, more or less, the time cops in the future that are able to come back and they have to repair shit like now. They don't necessarily get multiple tries. They got to get it right. Although I'm pretty sure there's an episode with 7 and they keep fucking it up. But anyway. I like the fact that time travel, more or less, has been respectfully treated by Star Trek. Like I said, the best movies use it, some of the best episodes use it, but also some of the worst use it too. So I guess ultimately, time travel in Star Trek, you know what? It's fun. It's pretty good fiction. And I do hope when we get a new Star Trek series on TV, which, I'm crossing my fingers, it's got to happen sometime sooner or later. Hopefully, that we get it figured out and we make stuff happen and they don't rely so much on it. If you had 1 time travel episode every other season, maybe two, I'd be okay with that. But there should not be a consistent time travel episode every season, I think.
No, I definitely agree. I think that between that and the holodeck, they relied entirely too much.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to rely on the strength of your characters and your setting before you can use time travel. I mean, like I said, I think a number of great time travel movies have strong characters before the time travel thing is even introduced. I think a best example of this is Back to the Future. You care about Marty and Doc before the time travel thing even happens. And throughout the series, and that's another thing to talk about time travel, was the Back to the Future series. But honestly, I could be here spewing nerd bullshit all night. It's kind of just... But then again, that's the way this show works. We can just kind of talk about things like this. Like, one of the big inspirations for this show, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this well before. I think... What episode are we on now, Steve?
I think it's 16.
Yeah, 16 episodes. We've been going for quite some time. And there was a podcast / radio show, the first one that I'm aware of, and it was called Talking Trek, and it's just putting everyday spins on everyday topics with Star Trek. So that's kind of why this show's kind of taken a little bit of a different direction, why we don't necessarily put out episodes as often anymore. Once a month, I think, is more than enough, considering how in-depth these conversations can actually get. So for our next show, which is going to happen, like I said, pretty early on, we may actually get 2 Future Imperfects out next month, just because the one is just talking about the new movie. And then, you know what, Steve? We should maybe do one of our easy shows, but probably one of the more fun ones.
For the next one?
Yeah. So we're going to do Star Trek Into Darkness for the next episode. Then after that, before the Memorial Day weekend in Canada and the U.S., we're going to talk about the Borg. This is such an easy show, so many topics within them, their strengths, their weaknesses, some of the tie-ins. In fact, I just finished reading the Doctor Who and Star Trek crossover where the Borg and the Cybermen start working together. Surprisingly cool, actually. So that's what we're going to be talking about next time on Future Imperfect. So I want to thank everybody who stuck with us. Like I said, big shout out to the USS Hadfield for doing wonderful work in the community. Like I said, guys, check out sfi.org to find out more information about the world's largest Star Trek online fan club. They supply us with phasers and photon torpedoes to destroy our enemies. So for Future Imperfect, we have been
Steve Megatron Phillips.
And I've been Mike the Birdman Dodd saying, live long and prosper.